Hey everyone, and welcome to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Pierre, and joining me as always is Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
This is a science fiction movie podcast. Every episode we get together, we talk about a movie that we watched, and on this episode I'm revisiting. Tara for the first time is going to be delving into Coherence, which is a little indie sci-fi movie from 2013 that I discovered 4 or 5 years ago, something like that, and was determined to show to Tara. And finally, there was a hole in the schedule that we could go, hey, no, I'm taking that. We're putting this movie in there that I want to watch.
Yeah, you've been bringing this movie up for a while.
Here we are. So honestly, this is a movie that's best to go in cold, and I would recommend that. I'll do a spoiler-free section with some of the basic premise, but honestly, I would recommend stopping us right now and going and watching the movie and coming back. I really would.
As someone who's experienced it for the first time, I concur.
Yes. So let's get out of the way first of all, and obviously it's worth watching. I wouldn't be saying that to you. I wouldn't be saying care this much about going in cold if it wasn't worth watching, right? Obviously, it's worth watching. Right. I recommend it. But yes, so this is a movie directed by James Ward Byrkit, who has not directed any other movies before or since. He's still worse in movies. He's got credits in art direction and things like that. He's still working in stuff like to this day, but he's not directing anything. He's doing other jobs. This was his little movie his little project that he did somehow with mostly a cast that I'm unaware of, except obviously one. There's one actor in this that I do obviously know because he was on a certain hit television show, Roswell. So
clever.
I have people will get that joke if they've seen the movie or later on when I explain it. But I will say that it's actually a really clever joke in the movie itself that I'll get into when we start talking about things. But yeah, so the movie is set essentially in one house. They do go outside the house occasionally, but it's set in and around one house. It's a dinner party. It's 8 friends getting together. The ages sort of vary, but we're talking early 30s. I think the oldest people there are maybe in their sort of later 40s, but it's kind of that range. And they're all friends. They're ready for a dinner party. But that night, there's a comet. Miller's comet is going overhead, and this is a science fiction movie podcast, so obviously something science fiction-y happens as a result of this comet going overhead. And I will simply say that it is to do with timelines. Or dimensions, or realities, or whatever phrasing you would like to use.
Okay. Yeah, things become very Twilight Zone.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, things become very Twilight Zone.
Yeah,
that's what we could call it.
The comet is from the Twilight Zone.
The comet has entered from the Twilight Zone, and will return to the Twilight Zone after its night of chaos. So, but to really put it into simple terms, it's a movie. A group of characters who get together. They're reminiscing, catching up, connecting over their pasts and things like that. And then mysterious things start to happen because of the comet. And I'm basically just going to leave it there. Like, I don't want to tell you anything else in spoiler free. Like, I feel like anything else would be spoiling things, and I think this movie's worth watching. And we'll just get into the rest of the spoiler free stuff. Tara, this is your first time seeing it, although technically your second because you watched it twice. But you watched the.
I had to keep everything together. Yeah. So.
Yeah. But both viewings were in the last 48 hours, so you're here, you're primed, you're ready to go. How did you feel about Coherence?
I sort of love this movie.
Yeah, you do.
But I mean, it's my type of film, right? We talk about this what we want from a movie in a science fiction movie. We don't need the big flashy explosions and alien ships. We like having the 12 Angry Men of science fiction, where people have this concept and they have to work it out. And this whole movie is like a puzzle that all these people are trying to figure out and solve. And all these wrenches keep getting thrown in as they uncover things. And it's really awesome. Like, it's really fun. And it's really well written, really well acted. Some of the direction made me a little bit ill. Just some of the camera work made me a little ill, but I get it. It's a cheap film. Like it looks very indie.
It does look indie, but it looks more professional than some like a lot. There's a lot of like low budget indie stuff that goes like to VOD and stuff that doesn't look like film. It looks like really cheap and nastily lit. I felt that this actually still looked professional, despite the fact that it.
Sure.
Because I think
just the
handheld. Yeah.
Handheld camera. Sometimes I'm like, just slow down, stop shaking.
Yeah, the handheld camera I think was an effort to keep it moving frantically, and also because even the opening of the movie, it's like her on the phone as she's driving up to the house, and it's sort of getting out of focus constantly. And I kind of get why, just from like a title of the movie, Coherence. It's incoherent, and it's kind of phasing back and forth. It kind of fits with the themes.
Sure. I thought about it too, and but I still wish that we just had some moments where I'm just like, stop, just calm down. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I get it. It's too much for your eyes, I guess. Your eyes are just not liking it because it's, or your head's not liking it, whatever way you want to phrase it. I get it. Because you mentioned the acting. The acting is very good. It's all very natural. And part of that is actually that I believe a lot of the dialogue, they let them kind of, massage by themselves. A lot of it's kind of improvised, which, and I think one of the assets the movie has is that they're dealing with such a crazy concept. And I think if anyone has a complaint is that they maybe jump to believe things sometimes, maybe a bit quick. But I think what helps ground it is the fact that they really feel like 8 real people who are, like, at least most of whom, there's one kind of
They feel like 4
outsider.
couples that are all friends with each other. The conversations they have, the jokes they make, they all feel like they're just natural. Like, yeah, these people all know each other.
It feels very natural. And I think that makes all the crazier stuff easier to buy, because everything feels so grounded in a real life way.
My only nitpick with the film is that a lot of people have a lot of convenient knowledge of what's happening. There's our main lady knows a lot about crazy comet stories that have happened in previous centuries, and the one character has a brother who happens to be like a genius and just knows quantum mechanics, and
I'll give you the brother, right? I'll give you the brother. I'll stick up for the main, M, her name is. I'll stick up for her knowing some stuff, because she kind of frames it as because this comet's happening tonight, she read some articles today that sort of like.
Sure, maybe she was listening to NPR in the car, and they were doing a history of crazy comets.
Because the way she was reiterating it did feel like someone heard something like on a website or a podcast and was just kind of retelling it to their friends. It kind of had that feel to it. Ultimately, though, I would chalk all this up to, we have to have a movie, and without this, how do you do it? I suppose. Sure. I don't have a good answer for you.
Well, maybe you don't need the history of the comets.
Sure. You definitely need. I mean,
the one lady has has a little bit of a medium thing going on. I'm not into that, but I get it. Like, it still feels very much like a real person.
I mean, she wasn't really a medium, though. I mean, hell, even that's a leap.
The feng shui was off. And...
okay, so some hoity-toity middle-aged white woman's talking about feng shui. I mean, that's not saying
it seems like a real, it seems like a real thing. But she is disturbed by a certain area of the house, and that does come back later.
Oh, I guess. So you're taking that as she's literally feeling something there, and it's important. I took that as a thematic thing where it just happens to be that place. It's like a wink-wink from the creators behind the camera. I guess I just read that moment that kind of idea differently from you, because I don't read that as, oh, she actually really felt something there. Just
okay. I mean, on the second viewing especially, I noticed it more. But...
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
She certainly didn't feel anything else when there's a whole lot of other things going on.
Yeah. No, it's just, she felt like just a sort of typical like upper class, middle aged white woman who's
bored and discovered crystals or something. Yeah, the power of magnets.
Yeah, she likes to talk about a lot of weird shit. This is kind of who her character is.
Yeah, and do really hardcore drugs.
Yeah, in fact, one of my favorite lines in the movie, after she's got this little vial of something, she's like, hey, if anyone wants this in their food or something, like, just let me know. And she says it's her own concoction, and she says that she just casually puts out the ad that one of the main ingredients is ketamine, and Nicholas Brendon, who I was talking about earlier, of course, the actor that I knew. One of my favorite lines in the first chunk of the movie, it's just like a nothing line, is at the end of that scene before it fades to black, he just kind of yells out as everyone's arriving, "Hey, does anyone want coffee, wine, ketamine?" It's just such a good little
horse tranquilizer. Yeah.
So no, I think the act is all very natural. I think that lens that gives it a credence of like reality that I think makes it feel genuinely unique. Because I would let this movie away with a lot more, probably, for the fun of the debate and the fun of the theoretical physics and the fun of like what's going on. I would let it away with more. I think the fact that it keeps it grounded as it is actually quite impressive and makes it very endearing to me as a movie.
Yeah, and I really do think that this one improves on multiple viewings. I mean, you've seen it more than I have, but on the second viewing, I was like, okay, now I'm picking up on these details, and they really do start from the beginning.
Joe, yeah, everything. There's not a line in this movie that's wasted, which is actually even more impressive when you realize that the actors were kind of improvising a lot of the dialogue. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure the details of what they had to get across were not improvised. Like, they have to get this point, this point, and this point across, but it does make it really impressive. And so yeah, this was the third time I'd seen the movie, and what was interesting is I was noticing a couple of things. Not as much, of course, because obviously first to second's a big deal, right? Second to third,
sure, not
as much. But I was noticing a few things that I hadn't noticed before, and even more amusing than that, though, there was a couple of things that I only realized at a certain point that I missed this time that I'd noticed the second time.
Yeah.
Like, there was a moment where something kind of paid off, and I remember, and the reason why I noticed it is because I remembered it from my previous viewing, not because I noticed the setup in this viewing.
Oh, right.
So I was like, oh shit, I'm even forgetting things from the previous sitting, and like,
right,
remembering that instead of noticing it this time. It was just, so it's a wonderful puzzle of a movie. You feel like, I think your brain's doing the murder board thing with the strings and the photographs.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Try to piece it all together.
That's why, because we were supposed to record this yesterday, and I finished the movie and said, I think I need another go. Because once the movie was done, I was like, okay, I get the overall concept and themes, but I really want to know each step to the puzzle just a little bit better before we talk about it.
I think, and this is the sort of movie for me.
Really helped.
This is the sort of movie for me where, like, sometimes we'll, watch some crappy VOD sci-fi movies, and, we've been setting our schedule up, and we're looking at doing even more in the near future because we've kind of neglected them and almost letting ourselves away with just doing big classics a little bit too much recently. And this is exactly the type of movie that we might occasionally discover, where it makes it worth wading through all the other sort of cheap shit that is just shit. And this is the movie that this type of movie is what I'd put forward and say, look, sometimes if the writing and the lyric qualities of the acting and directing are good enough, the budget does not matter. If anything, it'll be more inventive than the bigger movies, and it'll be more engrossing because of it. This is essentially a movie with 8 people talking for 90 minutes, and it's probably more exciting beat to beat than some of the biggest budget blockbusters that I've seen. Like, we just did Independence Day last week.
There were scenes that were really, really tense.
Yeah, we just did Independence Day. This movie is way more exciting than Independence Day. I will stand by that.
Yeah, I mean, the third act of Independence Day is pretty exciting, but there's no Bill Pullman speech, but it's pretty good.
No Randy Quaid flying up the anus of the ship and going, I got you, suckers, or whatever it says. No, I got you, suckers is the end of Chubby Rain, the fictional movie in Bowfinger. I don't know why my mind went to that quote.
What?
You ever seen Bowfinger?
No.
Bowfinger's about so Eddie Murphy is like a big hotshot actor in that, in the context of the movie, right?
Ooh, isn't Pluto Nash a science fiction movie?
It is, yes. I hadn't even thought of that. Thanks for reminding me of that. But Steve Martin's like this fledgling director. He's got this crew of people who always help him, and they're like low lives, they make nothing. But he finds this guy who's a dead ringer for Eddie Murphy, right, in the film, because he's not called Eddie Murphy, he's like whatever famous actor is in the movie. And their plan is to shoot a movie using him as a double, but somehow tricking the real actor in like public situations where he doesn't realize he's in a movie, but all the crew think they've actually hired him, and Anyway, the end of this fake movie is him yelling out, "I got you, suckers," into the sky because it's like an alien invasion thing.
I learned so much from this show.
Honestly, it's probably the last decent Eddie Murphy movie.
I believe that.
I mean, I've not seen it was like a drama he was in like last year that people said were good, but out of his comedies, that was the last good Eddie Murphy movie.
Yeah, Tower Heist was no good.
No, that sucked. And this was like, I want to say Bowfinger was like 1999, maybe 2000.
Yeah.
But anywho, so
yeah, no budget, still great. These are the type of gems that we hope to find. I put this up there with like Time Crimes and Day the Earth Caught Fire on like, what a surprise. And even some of the stuff we did in the 70s was pretty good.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think when people, because how do I phrase this in a diplomatic way? When certain people will look at a movie and say, "Oh, nothing happens because there was no like explosions or gunfights or things of that nature."
That is part of my criteria for whether or not a movie's good.
I feel like
must be at least 6 explosions.
This to me is an example of like just like, no, you can do so much more with less, and like it's great if you can do all those exciting things. If you can be the Christopher Nolan with your Inception, where you've got the ideas, but you're also putting in this insane action on top of it that works with it, then great. But this to me is so impressive as a little movie. I love this kind of stuff.
Yeah. This is our most 12 Angry Men of movies so far, of science fiction films so far.
Yeah, so far.
Just people arguing around a table trying to solve a problem. This is what we wanted, what was it, Final Countdown to be. We bring up that movie a lot, or I do at least. It's the little movie that could. Or that should.
Going with our YouTube numbers, it is kind of the little movie that could. It seems to just keep.
Yeah.
It's not our most successful, but it's bizarrely high compared to some of the other episodes. Anyway,
right.
So no,
a lot of grandpas searching for it and thinking that our review is just the movie.
Look, it's not my fault if old people don't understand the word review. Okay, it says review in the title. It's in the thumbnail. I can't make it clearer. I can't. I've even started putting our faces on the thumbnails to make it clear. Hey, this is the people actually on the video. This is us here.
Yeah, it reminds me I need to start doing my makeup before we record.
Yes, I have to make sure and duck my head down every so often just so that I can get a frame where I'm not cut off at the top. So, anyway.
You make the thumbnails. You can just take a picture.
I did do that for Screams, actually, for the Twilight review. I had to fake a pose because I realised all of my head was completely cut off the entire review, which is fine in the context of video. People think cutting off the head's a bad thing. It's not. Like, if it's framed properly with your eye line, cutting off the head's fine. But it's bad for taking an image from to make a cutout of. So I had to just do a pose. So if you look at the Twilight thumb for Screams, my face is just me performing because it's not an actual moment. I'm also wearing a different shirt than the video, so that should tip people off. But anyway, so I think I shall
behind the scenes scoop.
I know. So I shall give you the spoiler warning. I will thank our $20 patrons, which are our Patreon producers. So thank you to David Short, Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, and Alison M. Fordas. I don't have it in front of me. Also, it's 4 dice, not 4 dice. I used to say it that way, and then she corrected me, and I've been saying it right forever, and now I just messed it up because I don't know, had a brain fart for a second. I'm sorry, Alison. You're great. You've been a loyal patron for a long time. You're one of the favorites. Yeah, you're one of the favorites. So
how about that?
But of course, you don't have to support us for $20 per month, do you, Tara?
No, if you like what we do and you want to support us, you can check out the Patreon page at patreon.com/TV. What are you laughing at me for?
Because you're like a deer in the headlights. I do it every time and somehow you're still shocked. You're still like, what? No, don't put me on the spot.
Yeah. Anyway, go to that Patreon page, and if you donate $1, you'll get access to our library of bonus movies. You can get the Transfer Saga, you can get Time Cop, Judge Dredd. There's some great David Carradine films on there.
I'm just
plus you get all the Screams back catalog too. What?
If we get to episode 200 and you still say the same 3 movies when you're giving examples for bonus movies.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want to know about why dry hairs for squids, you should check out the Transfer Saga.
I mean, that's fair play. Transfers is relevant for a while because we've only done 3 of those so far, and we keep doing them every few months. So, you know, and hell, we might even do Transfers for this month. We've not picked our bonus movie for this month yet. This month being May.
Whoa.
So maybe a Transfers month. I don't know if Tower's in a Transfers mood, but we'll see.
I'm always in the mood for Jack Death.
Dry hairs for squids.
Although I'm probably too old for him.
You are too old for him.
Young.
He likes that what do they call it?
Barely legal.
Barely legal, yes. That's the term. And Tara, what do they get for the $5 tier?
You get to vote. You get to vote for movies that we do the voting for. Every month we'll come up with categories. Some of them
you get to vote for the movies we do the voting for.
Oh. I'm not wrong.
Well, that's true. You're technically not wrong.
Also, you can, if you want us to watch a movie, you can, submit it to the reactor, and a $5 tier gets to do that. So. And
one more thing the $5 tier gets to do.
Yeah, they get some episodes of shows a week early.
Oh, specifically for this show, they get all the episodes a day early.
Oh, cool.
Oh, dude, you think me saying it often enough would have somehow maybe just drilled its way into your head a little bit, but no. All right, full spoilers for Coherence from this point on. I did not expect the Patreon plug to be as jovial this episode, but here we are.
I'm sure in a different universe I did it. I just nailed it. So.
Oh dear. Do you know there's a universe where we're giving this a negative review?
Ooh.
That's the dead cat. Possible. That's the dead cat universe. I don't want to be in that universe.
That's not the universe I choose to live in.
Yeah. So look at us getting really sly with the hints of what the movie's going. So Coherence is about parallel dimensions or timelines diverging, and the whole idea of it calling Coherence, as they explain at one point in the movie from the dude's brother's book, from Hugh's brother's book specifically, is that we have all these divergent possibility timelines happening all the time, but decoherence means that they never actually see each other or merge or are aware of each other's existence. But what's happening with the comet is that while it's passing over, we have coherence, hence the title of the movie. The other example given for this is the Schrodinger's cat test, or the mental exercise, I suppose you'd call it, where you have a cat in a box and there's a vial of poison. And until you open the box, obviously either the cat's alive or dead, 50-50, right? That's the normal way of thinking about it. But theoretical physics says that both actualities are true until you open the lid. So there's a universe where the cat's alive and there's a universe where the cat's dead. And the idea being that all these universes that are happening, so to put these two together, what that's saying is that when the lid opens, is that there's now 2 universes from that point. And in one, the lid opened and the cat's alive, one, the cat's dead. But either version of you that finds that version of the cat will never be aware of the other version. You'll just think that yours was always the one. So that's what this movie's playing with. That's what the movie's playing with.
Well done.
Was that a good explanation?
That was a little coherent.
Did you mean that? Was that intentional? You're gonna take credit for it anyway, aren't you? Yeah. Okay.
No, I totally was.
All right, I believe you. So. Yes, the movie has lots of little hints early on when we meet the characters and we meet Em for the first time and her phone cracks as she's driving to the house, and we meet. And I was actually wondering if because it fades to black a lot for scene transitions, which is something that TV shows usually do for ad breaks, but this movie does it a lot. And I was wondering if every time it fades to black, it's technically not jumping to a different parallel line, but
I think we're with the same M the entire time.
Okay. You're probably right. We're with the same M the entire time. But of course, we don't necessarily.
I had to watch the on the second viewing, the last like 10 minutes, I watched twice because I just wanted to make sure, because there is a lot of things that happen there, and I just want to make sure that is the same one, right?
Yeah. Well,
I think it is. I think we're with the same M the entire time.
I think it is too. I think what's really fun once you realize what's been going on is like noting the moments that we actually say goodbye to versions of the characters that we're never seen again. Because you don't realize that the first time that you're actually losing that version of the character forever.
Yeah.
Once they've left the house. So I mean, how do I think working through this in order is going to be really tough because of so many details. So I think this will probably be a little bit more jumpy around it based on the ideas we're talking about. But Tara's looking down at her notes, which are completely in order. She's like, "No, I prepared for this."
I looked to see if I had water.
Okay.
I didn't have any.
That's all right.
I have no notes.
She's got like a diagram.
It it's not primer, but it's still like a lot to keep track of.
I feel like this movie does a better job of making the viewer feel like you get it, even if you don't get everything.
Yeah, well, the first time it's like watching a magic trick. You don't really know where it's going to go, and then the second time you watch it, you're looking for the steps on how they tricked you. You know,
because there's a lot of little things to set up early on that I love, little details that you don't realize are important until they are later. Because the thing I didn't notice actually this time that I remembered from my previous viewing when the payoff happened was I can't remember what the line was, but it's something to do with the vase that's in the kitchen.
Oh yeah.
I never actually picked up the first part of this viewing, but when they did the payoff later, where sort of M looks at everyone like, "Oh, wait a minute, that's not the same people that I was with earlier." I actually remembered from the previous viewing that they said they already had that interaction at the start of the story, so that's why this
they
stuck
said,
out.
Yeah, where'd you get that vase from? I love it. Oh, from Galaxy something, blah, or whatever. Yeah, and then that happens again, and M's looking at them like, "Are these my friends?"
Yeah, so
but it wouldn't make sense that, because for like 2/3 of the movie, we think there's only two versions. On the first viewing anyway. Yeah. We think there's just a copy of themselves.
And to be fair, when you do think it's just that, the movie's still fascinating. The idea that there's two versions of the house and there's two versions of the group, and okay, this version is the red version.
But
our
on
version.
The second viewing, they're dropping hints that there are way more than two.
there's tons of hints about how these people don't match up. So just to explain, kind of like, so they're having this third party. There's all these details. There's some character stuff to set up. Like, so I'll explain the characters. So M, it's kind of the main character, even though she's the main in the sense that we're the one we stick with the whole movie. But I don't necessarily feel that she gets like more time than a lot of the other characters. There's definitely portions of the movie where it feels like she fades into the background, and we spend with others. But we have M.
Yeah, she's our Ripley.
That's not fair. She's not a hero. Well, not this M anyway. That's M's the dead cat M. So Kevin's her boyfriend, and he's going somewhere for work for 4 months, and he's asked her to come with, and she's kind of humming on about she doesn't really want to know if she wants to go, and he even offers, "Hey, well, just come for a month, so we're not going apart that long. You can stay there for a month, see how you feel, come back, no big deal." But it's kind of, they're in a bit of a rocky place because they're at this big decision and she's kind of hesitant. Meanwhile, we have Nicholas Brendon and his wife. So he's Mike and his wife is Lee. Lee runs like Skype, or I mean, she's not the boss of Skype, but they kind of imply, because they're in San Francisco, so we're like, Silicon Valley, all the rest of it. And she,
the frou-frou lady, she also no, not frou-frou lady, the lady with the dark hair is also works for a nonprofit in Silicon Valley. So
yeah, Lorene.
Northern California area.
So she does a lot of tech stuff for Skype or whatever. Mike is an actor. So actually, I'll explain this joke here and why I think it's so wonderful. So when they're actually having dinner, Laurie sort of questions about what he does for a living, because she's kind of she used to date Kevin, which is why it's kind of awkward that Amir, who's this other guy, their friend, has brought her to dinner. Apparently he's got a history of dating Kevin's exes, and this is the latest in line of that. So obviously it's awkward for everyone that his ex-girlfriend's sitting there, or he's sitting there with, and it's an interesting thing because it implies that, because these are all a big group of friends, so it implies that Kevin and M were well aware of each other for a long time. they've been around each other for a long time before they became a couple. Seemingly, he has all these like relationship stories, but they all know each other for a long time. Laurie's the only one who's kind of like, extra. She's the one who doesn't belong in the group, and that's kind of there. But anyway, so she's asking him what Mike does for a living, and he says he's an actor, and she's asking, okay, what sort of acting do? Is it theater or whatever? And he's like, I was on a TV show. So there's layers to this joke that I love. Layer number one is that he says he was on a TV show in the 90s that was big. And of course, my ears are perking. That's my first time through. I'm listening to like, where's he going with this? And he says Roswell. And I'm like, and then later on when we get to the alternate timeline stuff and the alternate realities, I'm like, oh, that's pretty funny. This is a version of, obviously he's not called Nicholas Brendon, but this is a version of Nicholas Brendon where he was on Roswell instead of Buffy. That's pretty funny. There's actually like a meta level to this. It's even better though. So later on, we find out that he's an ex-alcoholic. Well, you're not an ex-alcoholic, but he's a recovering alcoholic is the term, right?
Yeah, he's sober.
And we find out that other versions of Mike in the other houses aren't sober, right? They're still drinking.
And violent.
Yes. Nicholas Brendon in real life has had several drinking and violent like arrests. And there's something here about this joke that just makes me laugh, because what they're saying is the version of Nicholas Brendon who was on Roswell instead of Buffy was able to get over his drinking problem and is having a fairly comfortable life. But so presumably the drunk one we see later might have been the one that was on Buffy.
Which one is our Nicholas Brendon?
And I think there's layers to this joke, and if he was aware of this joke, if he understood what they were doing with this, he's a good sport for letting them do it, because it's actually really funny and really cutting. So
too bad the real Nicholas Brendon is like an asshole.
Yeah, drunk Mike's more like Nicholas Brendon, unfortunately. But there is a layer to that that's like, man, that's actually really smart, like little inside joke almost, that they've nailed it that much. But I dug that.
Right.
That's fun. It's fun. I like it.
Plus, he really is like the only recognizable actor, at least he's probably like the most recognizable actor because he was on a hit TV show.
A hit TV show. A hit TV show, you say?
I'm just using your words.
Thank you.
I hear it every episode. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the actress who plays M's been on a bunch of TV shows and stuff, bouncing around. But yeah.
I don't know who any of these people are really. No. Maybe Hugo looks familiar, but he's.
You mean Hugh?
Hugh is the actor Hugo.
Maybe.
The tall one.
The actor's Hugo.
Kind of familiar.
Yeah, the actor's Hugo.
No, he's not anything.
No.
He's in some things.
Yeah. I know that Lee isn't really acting anymore, because when I was looking at the actors the other day, she seems to have just stopped. She does other stuff. Like, she's someone who does like producing and stuff like that, but she's not really been in anything since this, basically. She's directed stuff too.
She's great. Like, she was. I thought everybody was so good in this movie.
Do you know what she directed recently? Hustlers, that movie that came out last year.
Did we bring that up in one of the reviews? In Independence Day, we did.
I think we did, yeah. That's funny.
Talking about stripping.
She directed some New Girl episodes. She's done a couple of movies now. So she's a director who's having her career flourish.
Hey, how about that?
At the moment. So, wasn't Hustlers like nominated for some Oscars as well? I mean,
nominated for Oscars?
I'm sure it was. I'm sure someone got like a supporting actor. Did
Lopez sing?
Oh, was that a low-key burn? Did she sing? It's the only way she could have been nominated for an Oscar if she sang.
Wait, is it a good movie? I legitimately thought it was a bad movie.
I think some people seem to like it. It didn't look like my sort of thing, but I mean,
there's an AARP Movies for Grown Up Awards.
Okay, can we move on?
That?
Every episode, you go down this rabbit hole of looking up everyone on IMDb.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's my fault.
It's your fault.
There's a universe where you're the one who does that.
Yeah. I actually started it in this episode before anyone corrects me in the comments. I'm aware of that. I'm aware of it.
Okay. Let's move on.
Peter getting the evil eye from Tara is good entertainment value. So I mean, something's been accomplished. So anyway, so I was just playing the characters. So you have Mike and Lee. You have Em and Kevin. Of course, we mentioned Laurie, who's the ex-girlfriend, and she's with Amir, who's their friend. Amir. And then we have the slightly older couple, which is Hugh and Beth. Beth being the one who's at the feng shui, and Hugh's got a beard. So that's our characters. And there's a lot of little things set up about the dynamics between them early on. I think even just the character stuff at the start, because everything, I was really noticing in this viewing that everything they talk about, even at the dinner table, it's all stuff that, like, in their past, like, if only it went in another direction, or almost went this way instead. Like, because M's big thing that she talks about when Laurie's asking about what she does, and she's like, oh, I used to do ballet or whatever, and she's telling the story, and she tells the story.
She creates like a dance routine or something, or a show.
Yeah.
That somebody else ends up getting to star in because they brought in somebody else.
Yeah, well,
last minute or whatever.
Yeah, the specific story was that she wanted to star in it because she created it, but they got like the ballet troupe or whatever they're called. I don't know
the prima ballerina from somewhere else.
But the biggest ballerina in the world joined the company, and because of that, she was given the lead role, and she was M was only offered the understudy, and M took a long time to decide if she wanted to even take the understudy because her pride was hurt. So someone else took the understudy job, and then, as luck would have it, the big actress or the big ballerina pulled out at the last minute, and the understudy got to do the role. So not only did she get to be the lead, and that would have been M's job, as Laurie points out, this person who replaced her is like the only name she knows from ballet because she's that famous. She's like the one name that everyone who's not into ballet knows. And she even says, "Oh, she like stole your life. Like that could have been your life." And obviously this is also her boyfriend's ex-girlfriend, so there's like extra just layers of like tension in this exchange.
There's a lot, like on the second viewing, there's a lot that I'm still a little puzzled by. Like it seems like there is a universe that Laurie has seen Roswell without Nicholas Brendon in it. So it seems like there's already changes happening. Oh, that's like maybe from the initial drive.
Yeah, no, you're right. There's a... Well, it's worth mentioning that her and Amir do arrive last. They do. Last. And, I mean, admittedly, I think you could maybe argue that nothing really happens until the power goes out, because that's when stuff really starts like happening. They start seeing things and questioning things and whatnot. But you may be right.
But the power doesn't go out until one of the houses that we see at the very end, until after the new M has arrived.
Oh yeah, they're clearly not on sync. They're clearly all happening kind of like that's like staggered. That's what I was looking for.
The opening scene, M is on the phone with Kevin and she's driving, and her the signal goes out on her phone. And she's able to reconnect with Kevin, but he's talking about something else now, like a conversation that sounds a lot more serious, and his tone is different. And then she's like, should we talk about this? And then
just to explain, just to explain the Roswell thing that you brought, because that's a good point that I'd forgotten to mention, is that when he explains that he was in Roswell, she's like really confused because she watched the whole show and she doesn't recognize him. And it's almost as if she came from the world where he was in Buffy instead, and she never watched Buffy, but she saw Roswell. Like, you weren't in Roswell. I watched it. I don't remember you. You're right.
And he's like the lead guy. So anybody who was even slightly a fan of the show would have been able to say, "No, you weren't."
Yeah, because she says, because she says what episode were you in, and he's like, all of them. That was a series regular.
If you told me that you played Jean-Luc Picard, I would have been like, bullshit.
Hey, the hairline's getting there. I don't know. I could have been Picard.
I just said it because he's the lead.
Sure. Like, no, it's actually really fun. You're right. It does kind of imply that there's already been some swapping. Maybe not stuff that's super obvious, but like it does imply that a little bit. Which would also mean that they're Amir, because Amir comes with her. So it would also mean that the Amir that's here doesn't belong in this world either. And chaos. It's all very interesting stuff. So to get into the actual shenanigans of it, They go out to look at the comet. They see it briefly, and then they come back outside. And the power goes out. I don't know what the order of all these events are exactly, but basically because the power's out and there's one house that you can see in the distance that's lit up, right? Which it must have a generator. And sure enough, not too long later, Nicholas Brendon goes down to the basement to get their generator kickstarted, and he's all excited because, hey, we did it. But one of the neat things is they pull out these glow sticks. They've got boxes of glow sticks, and they open the blue box, so they've all got blue glow sticks, which is important because for a long chunk of the movie, in the first time view, you think there's two houses, and you think we're watching the blue house, and there's a red house.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the only difference. It's a coin flip,
and we don't get
the chance.
We don't get to even know that they've got the red glow sticks until quite late on. Though there's a lot of stuff before we even get to that point where we understand that the other house has red, because it's not until they actually see them as a group when they see like duplicates, and that's like halfway through the movie. There's a lot of stuff before then of just Hugh and Amir going to the other house to try and see if they can use their phone, because Hugh's like, oh, my brother said I should contact him if anything weird happens, and so he tries to go do that, and of course, as they're away, you hear a noise outside, and it's like, oh, there's someone out there. That's creepy. But then eventually, Hugh and Amir come back, and they're kind of like, Hugh's got a cut. And again, there's another coin toss moment where he's getting the Band-Aid. And it's like, do you want the cloth Band-Aid or the regular Band-Aid? And of course, that becomes a detail later that changes. And it's like, oh, wait. But one of the ones
Amir grabs this random box, and he says, I picked it up because I saw you put the box down. But like...
Yeah, different Hugh.
Then he says, but I didn't put the box down. I have nothing to do with that box. Anyway, go ahead.
We get to the box in a second. But there's a detail here that I didn't know. I mean, I noticed this part where they come back in the house after the lights or after the comet, and like one of the glasses on the table is like smashed. There's like a sort of half of it's like sort of just chunks gone.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. There's a moment later on when Lee's sort of just casually doing the dishes, and she puts the glass down, but it's not like smashed. I never noticed that in the first two viewings.
No, me neither.
That was a really nice touch. That was a really subtle one.
And every line, every detail in the opening of the movie is important in some way.
And the reason why that's so cool is that lets us know that M's not in the original house anymore, because that means we're not in the original house anymore. And that's really cool. I really like that little touch. But you're right. Let's get to the box, because that's this little box, and they open the box. And inside
this is when it becomes like a horror movie for a little bit.
Yeah, they get all scared because like there's photos of them in the box, and they've all got numbers in the back, and it's not like, because the numbers are 1 through 6, but it's not like there's a 1 1 1 2 1 3 1. There's like 2 6s and 3 3s or whatever. Like there's this like they're mismatched.
There's 0 3s. Yeah, that's a detail.
There you go. That's a detail.
There are no 3s.
And it's like
it skips 3 and has like 2 4s, and yeah.
Which is that's the point. It's memorable, which is why M remembers later that there shouldn't be any 3s in the original list.
Right.
Gets so wacky, but it's like, okay, so also why is there a ping pong like bat? Why is that
paddle,
in here?
Yeah,
a paddle. Sorry, it's a ping pong paddle.
I know you're not a sports guy.
I'm really not. No, but they pull that out, and then it's like all these photos with numbers, and they're confused. And there's a moment afterwards when everyone's talking amongst themselves where M kind of turns to Kevin and says, hey, this looks like my handwriting. This is kind of weird. Like, what's going on here?
I like the panic that she has too, the subtle panic. But also, she's just super mad because he told a story about his ex-girlfriend.
Oh yeah, you can feel the daggers coming off her eyes because they're all telling stories from the past, and Kevin decides to start one with, "Oh, this was when I was dating Lorene." Like, dude. You're jumping off a bridge right now. Stop it.
Yeah. Nobody's happy that Laurie is there anyway. And then he has to bring up a story about how he was dating her, which, by the way, when you listen to the story, has nothing to do with him dating her.
Yeah, he could have just...
He brought that detail up for no reason.
Yeah,
I would be pissed off too.
Yeah, he could have just not mentioned that part and just told the story. Admittedly, there's a
had a dream about it. I got mauled by a bear, and then I went to a party, and a dog named Bear mauled me.
I mean, there's a chance that if she'd seen the dog part afterwards, that she might have recognized it and said, "Oh, hey, yeah, I remember that," and then it would have came out anyway. But he didn't have to mention it. Although, to be safe, pick a different story. Just pick a story, any story. And then later on, when he says that, when we're having this conversation, she's like, you couldn't have told any of the stories about like us, and she's like, we don't have crazy stories.
That's why I like you. You're not crazy.
Oh dear.
Yeah, that goes over well.
Yeah, tensions, but it all feels natural. It all feels real.
Yeah,
you know, it feels like a real idiot making a a real dumb choice.
Yeah.
So yeah, all that stuff's really well done, and so they're all debating, and Hugh wants to go back out, and they're confused. Like, okay, wait, hold on, there's a book in the car, right? My brother had a book, or I think it's Beth that remembers this. There's a book of your brother's is in there. Some of his brother's notes are in there about, and this is where they get the Schrodinger's cat and these theories, and they're sort of debating this. Because we never even talked about what Beth actually, or not Beth, sorry, but what M actually says about the comets in the past, about how it traveled over like 70 years ago, and there was people were convinced that they were like, that's not my husband, I killed my husband yesterday, why is my husband standing there, and stuff like that. But she does mention that this comet that's traveling tonight is much closer than any other comet on recorded history, so presumably the effects will be worse or stronger than they were in these previous versions.
Yeah. So. Okay.
Yeah.
Comets have magical physics power. Whatever. It tells a good sci-fi story.
Oh, of course, yeah. Like, yeah, just
even
go with it.
It's mostly magic.
Yeah, just go with it. It's I don't know. The space-time continuum's freaking out.
It's Twilight Zone logic. I can accept it.
Sure. Yes.
In fact, they used this premise of a comet in the latest season of the reboot.
Yeah, don't bring up the reboot. I saw the cast list for all the episodes, and for season 2, and I'm like, oh, this must be coming soon. We're getting to that point.
It is a good cast, but yeah, it's not looking forward to it. I assume that we're going to be doing season 2.
Oh, we are. I'm not thrilled about it, but we are.
Hey, maybe the writers were checking out YouTube reviews. Took notes.
They'll be too stubborn. You know what they're like.
They just didn't get it.
Yeah, we're just too dumb for it. That's all.
The comet was making the men bad, but they were bad the whole time. Like, yeah, okay.
Okay, so they have like these clues, and they got the book, and it's actually when the group want to go outside, right? So there's a group of 4, and this, I think what's really interesting here is that M doesn't want to let Kevin go off on his own. She wants to stay tethered to him, so she does, right? She stays tethered to him and insists that she's going with them, and a couple of others are going. So I think it's them 2, Amir and Laurie. I may not be Amir actually. Laurie's
Amir doesn't go.
Yeah, Laurie and someone.
I think Lee and Beth stay at the house.
Lee and Beth always stay at the house. They don't never leave. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Mike. It was Mike.
Mike.
Yeah, Mike's the one who goes with them. And they see like duplicates of themselves, and this is where it's like, no, there's literally other people there. Like, you can see them. You can see yourself with the red glow sticks. Really good stuff. And they come back, and when they come back and they're like, no, we saw other people, and they were the exact same except they had red glow sticks. There's a little moment where you just see Hugh and Amir look at each other like, oh no.
I didn't notice it the first viewing, but the second viewing, I was like, oh. He said you can't really hear what they're talking about, but he do hear the words "my wife." Like, that's not my wife.
Yeah, really good stuff. And I think what's so fun about it is that, like, at this point you're still thinking it's just 2 houses. At this point you're still thinking
the red team and the blue team.
It's that simple, yeah. And you never think about the idea that there could be green. There could be green out there, and yeah, we eventually see green glow sticks. Who is it we see? It's there's someone else who comes out of the house later with a green glow stick. It may be another Amir and Hugh, actually, now that I think about it. Because we think.
I don't think so. I can't remember. I don't think I ever saw the green glow stick.
Oh, we definitely do.
Just the box.
I think one of the Mike has them. There's definitely green at one point. But
okay.
So because they think they get Hugh and Amir back, like they think, oh, there's someone out there, and it's Hugh and Amir, and it's like, oh, they've got the red,
they're gone for like 15
they've got the
minutes.
blue, yeah, and yeah, they think they've only been gone for however long, but they've actually been gone much longer, and they're like, oh no, it's us, like, we got the right color, It's, you know, we're back where we belong, no big deal. And this is where the movie's about to drop a bombshell on us, where things are getting really weird. There's some details that I've glossed over that I'll go back to, so some character stuff that I think's really cool, but
there's a lot of details. It's easy to skip.
Yeah, a lot of details. But we get this great moment where, okay, we have to make a signifier for the house to make sure we all come back to the right one if we have to leave, right? And this is where they go, well, okay, a box with items in it, and it has to be random. It can't be something that's just red or blue, because that's just a coin toss. And like, if there's more than one of each, then how do we know if it's the right red or blue, or so on? So like, okay, we'll do something. You know, we got dice. We can roll a number for everyone, and it's like, wait a minute. Because that's actually one of the details about the photographs, is that one of the photographs was taken that night. Yeah, of a mirror. And it's like, okay, you brought that shirt today, but you've not taken a photo yet. But, you know, so it's like, okay, so we can do that. And then it's like, wait, we're the blue house, we should have the blue pen. And she's like doing the color, she's doing the numbers, and she's like, hey, do you remember your earlier number? And she looks, oh, let's see what the earlier numbers were. And she gets to it. And I remember, you know, I think you remember her writing it in red. It was red before, which is why she started on red this time and then changed to blue. And we get to that page and it's green. And it's like, wait a minute. Yeah. And there's threes. And she's like, do you remember your number from earlier? And she's asking her red. One of the best parts of this, though, that I really noticed on this viewing, though, is when Amir brings up, because he does like website authentication stuff, and he talks about those. We don't really use them anymore, but in 2013, this was a really common thing, was like the images you'd get before you put your password to just sort of make sure you're not a robot or something. And he's like, oh, you have an image or something, a signifier, so that you're in the ballpark. And then I was down.
It's more for like a checking account. You can verify with an image as well, a random image that you click on. It's not like click all the pictures that have a bus on them or something. It's like you literally just select an icon of something random, like a flower.
So he explains this, right? And that kind of, remember the paddle? You're like, okay, that explains the paddle. So they're great. So, okay, how about we do a coaster? But there's a moment here that I loved that's really noticeable in repeat viewings.
What are you talking about?
Where they're describing different possible items, right? And, you know, someone's suggesting like a stapler, a napkin, or this. And on a repeat viewing, you realise that everyone who suggests something is suggesting what they saw in the first box that they saw that was opened earlier.
Right.
And it's like, it's those little things that just work so well in a second viewing where I'm like, holy shit, all of them are remembering different items from earlier.
Right.
So later on when she confirms it and she's like, oh, hey, what was your item from earlier? And he's like, oh, it was a stapler. He's like, oh no, it was a paddle, and so on. Like, it's like, oh, every single time they've left the house, and as Em puts it, there's like a dark area, that if they walk through that dark area, it's like they're just being spat out at some random universe and there's no control over it.
Right. Because there is a part where she gets separated.
Yeah, there is.
Because they all go into a dark area, because someone has smashed a window in a car, and they all go to the dark area. And they're like, well, let's all check our cars just to make sure that nothing else was taken or broken into. And she decides to like go to her car and climb in. And when she comes out, her boyfriend's there, and they have like a sweet moment. But then they both realize that they're not the right person.
Yeah, because she brings up stuff that just happened, and then they realize that he's not remembering this. And Joe was so great about it is he looks really intimidating. See, as soon as he realizes that it's not her M, or not his M.
Yeah.
The light in the face from the flashlight hitting his face, or the glow stick, just feels really intimidating all of a sudden.
Yeah, they both just kind of like walk away from the scene, like they don't really know how to respond to each other, other than like, I think maybe you're a threat, and it's important to back away.
And it's important to know here at this point, because this really sets up what her decision is later, is that at this point in the movie, her and Kevin are really strained, because not only are all the stuff we've mentioned already, but there was a scene where Laurie tried to like kiss him, and kind of succeeded actually in the hallway.
Yeah, she's flirting with him. He's sort of saying no, stop, but like not really. And then she kisses him, and then he's like, okay, that's enough. But
and Beth saw this, and she told him, and M confronts him about it, and he just kind of like strubs her off, like he's annoyed she's even asking.
Yeah, we have other priorities right now, not our relationship.
Yeah. And so this moment with this other Kevin is that this Kevin isn't mad at her. This Kevin is like feeling sweet and romantic, and she pulls out this ring that she wanted to get from her car, and it was like something that he won her at a fair someday. He's like, oh, I remember that day. That was sweet. And they have this sweet moment. And when she gets back to the house I mean, it's probably not even the same Kevin she left like 5 minutes ago, admittedly, but like she comes back to the house and she's like, hey, remember this thing? And he's like, like he just sort of grunts. And it really sets up this idea because as they're like debating all these theories and stuff, because Mike gets really, because actually the smashing of the car window, that was even set up because Hugh wanted to go steal the other Hugh's book when they still thought it was just one other house. They wanted to go to the other house just to steal their book, because Mike started having all these crazy ideas that he'd go and kill his other self so that they wouldn't come and kill them.
He's like, look, I'm not going to be the dead cat. They're going to be the dead cat. I like my life. And by the way, you know, what if the other Mike is drinking right now and he's angry? He's going to come over here and I can't fight off angry drunk Mike.
And that's the beautiful thing, is that when Mike does kind of disappear, I think it's during the scene where they're kind of asking Beth, did you maybe drug the food? Would that explain all of her weird feelings tonight? We'll forgive you, we just want to know it's okay. And she gets really offended of it and blah, blah. But Mike comes back in like after that and no one realizes where he's went. And as soon as he walks in, he just looks different and he's like, I'm getting a drink. And everyone treats it like he's like breaking like his, you know, sobriety that he's had for like a decade.
But this whole scenario is just breaking him. Causing him to go into a dark spiral. But
instead, what it probably is that this is drunk Mike from universe whatever number who's walked back into the house.
Yes, from Universe Red.
Yes. So all that stuff was really well done. And even because then eventually another Mike does show up to try and kill this Mike. Maybe one of the sober Mikes. But there's Mike on Mike action.
Yes. Are you going to bring up how they did it?
No.
Because he's a twin?
I mean, I wasn't going to bring it up, but yes, Nicholas Brendon does have an identical twin, which I assume they could use for body doubles in situations like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they did it on Buffy, at the very least. I don't know if they did it here.
Is he not credited?
I didn't see him credited. Let me have a look. There's a bunch of people credited as extras, but even if he was, he may not be credited. It's the sort of thing, because I know that Linda Hamilton's sister, who body doubled for her in Terminator 2, didn't get credited, so it's not that surreal. I know.
Hopefully they fix that on the special edition credits.
I don't know if they did. I mean, it wasn't one of the special edition scenes, so maybe she is in the special edition credits. I don't know. But
anyway,
so you have that idea. And you also have the idea that Mike wants to like try and blackmail his other self by like saying, "I'll reveal this secret that you slept with Beth like 12 years ago," and it's a bad idea. But eventually they get a note, and Hugh sees it, and it causes this big turmoil of a scene where he starts yelling and realizing that everyone else knew in the room that his wife had this one night stand with his best friend 12 years ago, and it becomes this big commotion.
Well, it's a good scene because Emma has already explained to Mike who she thinks is still part of his universe.
I know,
or her universe, or
you're about to bring up the line, aren't you?
It's good.
Because Nicholas Mike's basically trying to say, hey, look, this doesn't matter. And besides, like, Em's explained to me, we're not in this. Like, I didn't come from this house, so that's not your wife, and I'm not your best friend. We're not this, right? But Hugh keeps getting angrier and angrier. So Mike eventually gets frustrated, says, look, there's a million universes out there, and all this like divergent stuff all started tonight, which means and there's a million universes out there, and in every single one of them I slept with your wife. Which obviously starts a fight.
Right. And it's funny, but it also rings like super clever writing, because he could have said like, I'm not actually the person that slept with her because I'm not your Mike. Yeah. And that's not your Beth or whatever. But instead he goes like the super dickhead way to do it. And it's also after a moment where he's clearly drinking and saying like, what if we're the ones who are bad? Like, what if we're the worst versions of ourselves right now? And so he just becomes it, you know?
That's kind of
and then like M also kind of has that realization, like this is not the universe that is ideal.
Yeah, it's not the one she wants to be in. Well, that's kind of the point of the movie, is that these worst versions of them who are having all the, because it's worth mentioning that the version that we eventually see, the happiest version at the end, this is not a universe where they became obsessed and paranoid. They just sort of hung around and stayed talking, and that was it. No one cared. They just they were content with their lives and didn't let the paranoia or the suspicion get in. But all the ones that...
And all the couples are together. Like, they're all together. They're all, like, extra snugly.
All the universes where they did start to freak out and did start to look for answers, that meant they started splitting up, and it meant they started mixing. So all of the universes, because the universe that M started off in didn't seem that bad, right? But basically their own desire to kind of try and, like, they couldn't let it go. So they had to sort of intermingle, and they had to, like, do things, and it created this mess where none of them are happy. And ultimately the point of the movie is that M is trying to not be the dead cat. She's trying to find a universe to fit into, because she's not happy with the one she's in. So I think you could sort of read this movie and kind of like just look at the themes of the movie, and just like this person who's like obsessing over the choices that the past she's not taken and the choices she's not made. I think it's really important that we get a story about her from her past that already has her making the wrong choice that she's regretted her entire life.
Someone else is living the life that she should have.
She already has that kind of ingrained into her character. So when she makes this choice during this fight, when they're all arguing and fighting at the end, and she just walks out and walks into the void to go and search for a universe she wants to be in, I think it really plays well to her character. And we get this montage of her just looking at windows, and some of them they're fighting in ways that we can recognize, and some it's a little bit different or ever. And then she eventually lands in this one that's happy. Like you say, all the couples are together, they're all snug. Her and Kevin specifically look like they're the happiest couple in the world. And it's when she goes out to her car to get the ring that she basically jumps herself and tries to like strangle her and knock her out.
She's the one who ended up smashing the car window with a baseball bat to draw everyone out. So she caused that event.
Yeah, well,
that we saw earlier.
No, that's a version of her though. Another version of her in another universe already did that.
Right, that.
Yeah.
I just mean a version of M is the reason why that's happening. And so she's taking advantage of that to draw herself out, because she knows she'll be out by herself.
And that's the beautiful teasing of the movie. There's just so many little things that you realize later, or maybe in a second viewing you realize that, oh, that was actually this, and that was this for this bit, and this was them doing this later, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
So on.
Yeah. Because that's the writers must have had like a big board with like the Zodiac killer, red string tying everything together.
Because just to go back to the moment where M kind of pieces this together and realizes that there's more than two houses, and she's looking at the numbers, and she realizes she's not in the original house anymore. Like, the amount of houses that exist now, given the math and what she's looking at, is insane. Like it's like we've got 6 people, all with different random numbers, all with different like colors. So there's all these different. We don't even know how many objects there is. Like the random objects. We don't know how many there are. We know there's 3 colors, right? And then there's 6 people, all rolling random numbers that could be one of 6, and then different combinations of all those people together.
8 people.
Yeah. Like, we're talking millions, if not billions, of possibilities of houses. So if you leave your house, you're never getting back to it.
Yeah.
Never happening.
There's no way that you can do it. The way they describe it in the movie, or she describes it as, this dark zone is like a roulette wheel. Yeah. And every time you go into it, it's just a random destination that you can set off at. And they have different timelines. Like, not everybody is on the same, like when the first 2 guys, Amir and Q, leave, they come back both 15 minutes from when they left and like 45 minutes from when they left. And then when Mike leaves to go deliver the note, and he comes back after 5 minutes, and he's drunk Mike, with his name, M's boyfriend, Kevin says, dude, you were gone like 5 minutes. There's no way you could have gone there and come back in that time. He's like, no, dude, I was gone 45 minutes. So the timelines are all off. When we see the last universe that M sees the happy couples together, like, it does seem like they don't lose power at all until like the very end.
No, I think they might have done. Or maybe they didn't. It's the sort of thing where it could go either way. Because
they didn't have any candles lit.
There's a couple of lines, actually, because there's a moment where he says, oh, I'll go get the glow sticks when the power does go out. And Hugh goes, don't be silly, we're not in a rave. Like, it's like, this is a universe where they don't even get glow sticks out. So, and I think I also like the idea that the reason why that first house they interact with is like so similar, right? The red v blue, they're so similar. Is the idea that the universes that are next to each other are more similar than the ones that are further away. So you're sort of daisy chaining, and the further you get away from your universe, the more different it is. So the idea that when she goes through this dark zone like multiple times at the end, back and forth, she's getting further and further away till she eventually gets to. So that's why like those first two houses seem so similar, barring one or two minor differences, right? But then as it goes and goes, they're bigger and weirder or better in this case, where it's this happy life where everyone seems to be perfect.
Yeah.
And she tries to take this shortcut. She tries to kill her other self, but fails miserably. Might we add, because she passes. She's
gonna kill her.
Yeah,
she tries to be.
She passes out and she wakes up, and the movie actually ends in this wonderful moment where Kevin's out with her the morning after, because obviously the comet's passed, and I'd also actually argue that the reason why the power never went out the way it did in the other universes that she started in, if I go with my, the further out you get, the more different it is that this one's
right. The comet was already breaking up by the time it got to their house.
Yeah, it was like the edge of the universe tapestry, if you will. I don't know what you call it. So it only went out right at the end as the comet was finishing for the night. But Kevin comes out and says hi, good morning, and she's hiding the second ring, because now there's two rings because she had one on and she got the other one when she attacked the other M. But he has phone rings and it's Beth, or sorry, it's M, right? It's the M from this world.
Yeah, he says it's you.
Yeah, he just says it and we realize, this is weird. It's you. It's like, oh, who is this? And then he just sort of turns in. There's not even much of a reaction beyond just confusion on his face, and she just sort of looks like horrified that she's been caught, and that's it. Cuts to credits, and there's not much more to it, because basically this shouldn't exist. This shouldn't happen. They shouldn't find a second M. This anomaly shouldn't exist.
Yeah. This universe that she has ended up in, they have no idea about the other parallel universes. They were so far removed from all that there's no question. I wonder if there are any consequences.
I would think so.
That she is in. There are two versions of M in the same universe.
I would think so. I think she will. I think she'll basically spread the discontent like a disease to this universe, because her existing here, if she explains anything that happened in her life or how she ended up here, do you think Kevin in this world will ever look at his M the same way again, knowing what she's tried to do or knowing the world she came from? So it would have this knock-on effect. And I suppose maybe the ultimate message in the movie is that this feeling of discontent and mistrust does spread, and that this is, we're doing universes here, and it's spreading from one version of a person to another version.
This M has the goatee.
Yes. Yes.
She is from the mirror universe.
To reference Star Trek, sure, but in the sense that this is spreading. Let's say for a second that this isn't universes, right? Each version of M just represents a part of her, right? The whole M, right? And the idea that this one bit of this seed of her unhappiness is spreading throughout her, and that this version of her that should be happy is about to be infected and not be happy anymore because she just couldn't let it go, or she didn't contain it, and she was too bitter or whatever.
She reached too high. Yeah. She was trying to reach the version of her life that she's always wanted, but she did it with nefarious means. She tried. She had to, she attempted to murder a version of her in order to be it, but she could never be that wholesome self because she had to do an act of violence to do it.
Yeah, it was actually a line of dialogue that I never noticed until this viewing. When they were looking at the comet breaking up at the end, Hugh says something. I can't remember what the line is, to be honest. I can't remember the words, but he basically says something that tells us that in this universe, M is the ballerina, the prima ballerina. He has a line where he says something about her dancing. Yeah. It was just a subtle little thing, but it was just enough to let you know that in this world, she's probably did get that job, and she probably did become this big hotshot ballerina. Right. Oh, and not even just that. He has a line where he says something about her being gone for a month because she's going with Kevin. This is a world where she made that choice. regardless of who you want to blame for this like feeling between them, right? Whether it's him for being too pushy with this request to come live with them when he's on work location for 4 months or 1 month, or her for being wishy-washy and not wanting to commit and not feeling like she wants to make that choice. Clearly, in this universe, there wasn't that much of a question to it. It was very quick and concise to the point where they both felt like each other wanted to be around the other one, right? There was no uncertainty.
That they were happy together.
Yeah, basically, yeah, they were happy together, and because they were happy together,
just in a better version of their relationship.
Yeah. So, but the discontent and the mystery and the paranoia of she doesn't love me that much anymore, which then led to her feeling that he didn't love her very much and that he was being tempted by this ex-girlfriend. Because I guess that was the other thing, is that she has this scene with him where she sort of doesn't give him the answer about the trip. And it's right after that where, Laurie starts being really flirty with him, so she gets really kind of protective and possessive. She doesn't want to leave his side. She wants to stick.
Yeah, and she's like, "Oh, I hear that she doesn't want to go with you to this thing, but you should really have a girl who likes to do that kind of stuff with you."
Yeah, and even that.
Because you're an adventurer.
I mean, I know it's almost like a cheap praise, because like you can almost boil any conversation ever down to this, but there's so many conversations in this movie that it feels like they're discussing option A versus option B, or what is versus what could have been, or there's always this weird parallel to every sort of thing they're talking about, and I think it's very intentionally there to keep the idea of the all these divergent choices that have been made or whatever. So I think the movie's very smart in that sense, and very natural. I love all the character stuff. I love kind of essentially realizing she is the dead cat. I mean, for lack of a better term, because that's the terminology they use, realizing she's the failure universe, realizing she's the unhappy. If every choice has the yes universe and the no universe, she's realizing she's in the sad universe, that she can't have the happiness and she doesn't want to be in this world. And doing so might actually have crumbled another one, might have taken a happy one and ruined it because she's let that spread to them. So there's a wonderful character work going on there, but just the sci-fi ideas, the moment you realize that it's more than two houses, and then the moment you realize...
Yeah, I really thought it was two houses up until I saw the green pen, and then I just, my jaw just kind of dropped.
Yeah,
my God. And they tease it. There's a lot of
really
indications beforehand.
Yeah, there's a lot of really subtle hints.
More than two notes. There are, with conversations we've already heard with the boss, and...
The newest one tells us there's at least four, right? I think that's that point where you're like, oh wait, there has to be at least four houses.
Yeah, that might have been after the green pen, actually, where they realized that there were two notes here and two notes at the other. Yeah.
Well, because I always expected at least a third. Actually, I think the first time I watched it, it was the red and blue. I was convinced the green, because we saw 3 boxes, right, and there was a green pen.
Of 6.
Yeah, I was convinced there was going to be a third, right? But then, of course, there was 10 billion. So, whatever. The colors are just one of many variables that we're playing with, and that's good fun. But like you say, there's a lot of little hints. Even really early on, there's a lot of little hints in the dialogue of just subtle differences where, it's not just I think what blew my mind the first time was realizing that M wasn't even in the original house anymore. That this wasn't the original Lee and the original everyone else. Everyone else had changed in some capacity.
With the exception of the 2 women who always stayed in the house. They were always in the right universe.
Oh yeah, and the context to them, but in the context to us, because we were following M, that wasn't our version of those characters. That wasn't our original Lee and Beth.
Yeah.
So that's super fun. It's a fun puzzle of a movie, but it's one that I think holds up and does poke at some great ideas and is constantly engaging. And I'm never I've watched it 3 times now, and every single time I'm into it. When I put this on yesterday, I thought, well, you know what? I've seen it twice. The last time was only maybe a year and a half ago. Maybe I'll do a little Photoshop work while I'm watching or something like that. No. Less than 2 minutes in, I'd stopped anything else. I was paying attention and I was listening to every line of dialogue, because I started noticing bits of dialogue. I was like, oh wait, no, I need to pay attention now, because there's just all this stuff.
It's not too long. Also, it's just under an hour and a half. It's a real quick watch. It's maybe an hour 20, but so much happens in it, and it's very frantic that it feels a lot longer than that, which I know sounds like a bad thing, but it's not like it. There's just so much that you're taking in, and you're so engaged the whole time.
I'll put it this way. I was going to say, I'll put it this way, that the length, it doesn't feel long in a runtime way. It feels long, and it feels like you've went through a real big journey. Like, when you get to the end of the story, it feels like you've been through it. Because there's a lot of VOD, I talk about this with Tim a lot, because a lot of the horror movies we watch that are like straight to VOD are garbage, and it feels like they spend 90 minutes doing almost nothing, to the point where it feels like I can just feel it dragging. Evil Bong. Right? Oh, Evil Bong's a good example, right? But like, but there's a lot of other ones that are more serious, that are trying to be good, but they're failing miserably. And this movie, like, you feel like you've been through an odyssey by the end, and it's only 85 minutes. Like, you feel like you've went through so much, because it's so dense with ideas and content.
Right. Like, I also, I watched these movies. I watched the movie twice, back to back, and well, sort of with the end of one night and then like tonight. So, and the second time I thought, well, I should probably do my dailies in Animal Crossing while I just, listen to the movie, but I couldn't. Like, all I did was just, once the movie started, I'm like, okay, here we go. It's like, there's a lot happening, like, right from the beginning. Like I said, when she's driving in the car and the conversation on the phone changes after a glitch happens, you're like, wait, is it already starting? Like, are there already changes happening?
Well, actually,
she's not talking to her actual guy anymore.
That's the tell sign, actually, that she's realised that, because we think we've got Hugh and Amir back, and there's a moment when she looks up at Hugh, because the Hugh that was in the house originally, his phone cracked just like hers during the dinner conversation, and then as they're doing the numbers and stuff, and she's working out things, he's doing the calculator for her on his phone, and she looks at it, and it's one of those things she looks at, and when she's like realising, holy shit, like, this isn't even the original Hugh and Amir. Like, we thought it was because of the colors, but they're from a different house than I was from. So,
yeah, the film is really strong, like, in the writing and in the puzzle sense of it. Like, no matter how many times they've watched the film in order to, edit it together, like, they still know exactly where the audience is while they're figuring the puzzle out. Maybe some people are a little bit ahead, but like, for the most part, like, they got me every twist. It was like, I think I responded the right way.
Yeah, and I don't think, because even if you start predicting some of the things that are going to happen, because I think the first time through, like, once they set up enough rules, I'm like, okay, I can see certain things, happen. I can't remember what I thought of at the time, but like, I'm sure there's like some small things where I'm like, okay, because they've set up A and B, I'm assuming the A and B are going to do C or something, right? And those would happen, but even though they still did, it never felt unsatisfying. It was always kind of like, yeah, of course, that's part of the journey. But then, of course, as soon as C happened, then D was introduced. And then you realize that D was actually F, J, and like Z. Like,
yeah, triple Z.
Yeah, it expands upon it every single time. Because, but the beautiful thing is that even when I did think it was just two houses, it was still fascinating. I'm like, oh, what's going to happen with these duplicates? Like, what are they going to do to each other? Like,
right?
How do they resolve this? This is great. And when do? Because I think one of the assumptions at the start, as soon as they introduce the two houses, I think everyone's going to assume in their heads a little bit like, okay, there's going to be a twist later on where one of them's always been from the other house or something like that, right? And technically it does do that like 10 times, and every time it's amazing, because it's not just that, it's like, no, they're not from this house, but they're not from that house either.
Yeah.
And so on. So
yeah, really impressed.
I love it. It's so inventive. I love inventive filmmaking. When it all lands and it just, I mean, I do not mean this any pun intended, but it's amazing how coherent this movie is, because it really is.
You can't use that joke. I used that joke.
Yeah, but I'm going full circle to wrap up.
You're bookending the review with the same joke.
Exactly. I'm giving it a full circle feeling, right? We've went full circle.
Okay, that means we should wait, huh?
We're closing the paradox loop of the comet passing. I mean, not paradoxes, but you know what I mean. I guess technically are also paradoxes, but that's not the point of. Anyway, Tara, would you like to rate this movie? Also, what color are you rating it in, and what's your random object?
My random object is Ewok dog toy, and my color is orange.
Okay.
My number is 4.
4?
But my rating, that's my number.
Okay.
holds up. But my rating of the movie is gonna be pretty high. Actually, I really like this film. I thought it was fun to watch both times. The things that I don't like about it are just some of the camera work is a little nauseating.
Sure.
And some of the like story devices are a little convenient, a little bit too convenient for me. Like even on a second viewing, I was like, ugh. It's a little eye rolly that, she knows all the stories about the comets and he happens to have a brother, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but for the most part, it's the type of film that I love. It's just like a puzzle that is not quite primer challenging, but it's up there. And yeah, I think it's a 9. I think I'm gonna put it up there with Time Crimes.
Whoa. No,
I'm super impressed by this film.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue. Obviously, I wanted you to see it because I loved it. Yeah, this is exactly the sort of small, like, can-do movie. Hold on a second. Let me check something. Okay, Xander's Nicholas Brennan's brother is credited in the movie. I just never noticed because he has a different last name, which is weird. I'm assuming Nicholas Brennan's a stage name.
Oh, okay.
His brother's called Kelly Donovan.
Oh.
Interesting. Do you know what it is? I just noticed that the image and went, that looks like Nicholas Brendon. Who's this douchebag? Alright, anyway. So, yeah, this is exactly the sort of little film that I feel proves the qualities that you need to have an engaging story and how you can do it on a small scale, and why I will always wade through all these small films, even though most of them end up sucking. But because you find stuff like this once in a while, and this is the sort of one that really excites me. And it's one of the best sci-fi movies. I mean, we did our top 50 last year. I had this very high. I'm a top 50.
I had not seen it
of the decade, but or it was top 25 of the decade. But regardless, really wonderful stuff. Inventive, good cast, good direction. I don't mind the handheld camera so much. It is a little bit over the top at times, but I don't mind it so much. I will agree that there's maybe a little convenience in what some characters know just for the sake of like getting things rolling. But I'm willing to give that a pass, because without that, then there ain't no movie. So we can go with it. And I think it's amazing how much this actually makes sense as it unravels, despite the fact that it does feel so complex, especially when we sort of reiterate it back in a review like this. But
there's a lot that we skipped over. I think a lot of little details.
Oh, tons. But I mean, I think even if I went through this like a commentary track, if we watched it live and we sort of like commented on it as it was happening, I think we'd actually have to like pause constantly to talk about the details because it would be moving too fast.
Yeah,
we'd have to pause at every little thing. Go, okay, here, this is a hint for later, and this bit's a hint for. Like, it would be too much.
This is important.
Yeah, it's all important. All the pieces matter. Trust us. Just trust us. So no, there you go. I will rate this. Do you know, I've given it a 9 before, and I'm debating whether I should go up to a 9.5. Because 3 viewings in over 4 years or whatever it's been, and I still love this as much as I did the first time. Yeah, so at 9.5. I love it. This is exactly the type of little experimental, no budget filmmaking that I can get behind.
I can't believe you rated something higher than me.
It's possible. It's possible.
What universe am I in?
Do you think you're flipped? Do you think you're in the wrong universe? If I rate the next movie higher than you, then be concerned.
Then I'll know for sure.
Yeah. The next movie, by the way, is Bloodshot, so I'm not feeling confident about that happening, but we'll see. We're doing Bloodshot next episode. But this has...
Sorry, Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel, yes.
Should be exciting.
So this has been Coherence. You can let us know what you think of Coherence if you've seen it in the comments below. You can like and subscribe and all that stuff. Get us on the old Twitters at mail_fuzz for channel updates and all that kind of thing. Liking does help a lot. It does let YouTube know that you like this content, which I know that sounds obvious, but that lets YouTube promote it out in the algorithm and things like that. You can also rate the podcast on Apple Podcasts, 5 stars, all that jazz. Helps us all out there too. We mentioned Patreon earlier, patreon.com/mailfuzztv. Please do go and have a look at that. See if you're interested in supporting us and keeping all the content coming. Tara, would you like to promote another piece of Male Fuzz TV content?
Sure. If you're into these types of stories, maybe you should check out our Twilight Zone reviews, because we're reviewing all of the classic Twilight Zone episodes. We are in season 2 right now, and well, it's an anthology, so every show is new and different, so it's fun. Check it out.
Yeah, I love how you picked the one other thing that you're also on.
You always mentions that, yeah. I guess I am in the right universe.
Yeah, okay, good. We belong. Excellent. So yeah, thank you very much once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching sci-fi movies, guys. And computer, add cheese.
Ugh.